Do you know those moments when life seems to deposit you precisely where you least desire to be? Such was Isabella's experience that evening. She was seated alone at a table deck within the ballroom, as so far from the dance floor that it seemed someone had deliberately sought to sequester her. Her golden lights blazed up front, people were laughing raucously, sipping expensive champagne, spinning in gowns that cost her annual salary, and there was Isabella, utterly still, fiddling with her napkin as if it were the most engrossing object in the universe. She had only consented to attend the wedding because her friend had been so insistent. Go on, Isa, you need to catch your breath. To breathe. Ironic, really, because ever since she arrived, Isabella felt as though hair itself was insufficient. The modest dress she had purchased on sale looked even plainer beneath those colossal chandeliers. People walked past, glancing at her as if she were an incongruous detail in a valuable painting. But that was not even the worst of it. Her true affliction was the overwhelming sense that she simply did not belong. A single mother, utterly exhausted, with dark circles that defied even heavy cosmetic coverage, and perpetually haunted by a fear that afforded her no peace, the dread that her ex might return to torment her. She sighed and glanced toward the floor. Everyone dancing. Everyone elated. And she, alone. As always. Until a sudden hush fell over the ballroom. Not absolute silence, but the kind that descends when a significant event unfolds, compelling everyone, simultaneously, to direct their gaze to a single point. And that was when Isabella saw him. Him. Sebastian Montenegro. The billionaire who graced the covers of magazines, inspiring dread in some and fervent desire in others. The kind of man who appeared to hold the entire world captive in his grasp. He traversed her room as if every stride had been meticulously rehearsed. People parted to make way. Others whispered furtively. A few seemed to cease breathing altogether. And then, he stopped. Directly in front of her table. Her forgotten table. Her invisible woman. Isabella swallowed hard. Sebastian regarded her as if he were privy to every secret she carried. And, in a voice low and resolute that made everything within her tremble, he stated. Pretend you are my wife, and dance with me. Her music continued to play, but her world had come to a standstill. Because, in that moment, neither Isabella nor he could possibly fathom the transformation that dance would initiate. Isabella did not know it, but every step she took on that dance floor was imbued with a narrative unknown to anyone present. A narrative forged from exhaustion, courage, and sheer survival. She was 28 years old, saddled with a routine that consumed her very essence. She worked as an administrative assistant by day and took delivery shifts at night to supplement her income. She slept sparingly, ate whenever circumstances allowed, and lived with the same overriding thought every day: I just have to secure Samuel's future. Samuel, her 5-year-old son, was the underpinning of every silent battle she fought. A bright, docile boy with an inquisitive gaze. He noticed when his mother was weary and would tug on her small hand to say, "Mommy, you can rest for a little while on my blanket." It was that simple gesture that held Isabella together. She did everything she could to shield her son from the burdens of life, but sometimes fear escaped her control, fear of the man who had once promised love and had ultimately shattered her peace. Isabella's ex-husband, Mauro, had become a persistent, returning shadow. He refused to accept the end, refused the distance, and resurfaced from time to time with siniveiled threats. "You want to erase me from your life like this," he would assert. Isabella would swallow the urge to tremble, determined to protect Samuel from any potential trauma. This was why she lived in a perpetual state of vigilance, always glancing over her shoulder, always distrusting the silence. On the night of the wedding, however, Isabella tried to do something she hadn't done in a long time: breathe. Her friend Camilla practically dragged her to the event. "You need to step out of this exhausting cycle for a while," she insisted. Isabella agreed more out of politeness than genuine desire. She did not consider herself someone suited for formal gowns, glittering stember, or crystal tables. She was accustomed to being invisible, and that was precisely how she remained for most of the night, alone, observing a world that seemed to belong to an entirely different species. Across the ballroom, however, was someone who evoked both curiosity and apprehension: Sebastian Montenegro. 32 years old, a billionaire, and the CEO of an empire expanding with almost aggressive force. His resolute expression made it clear that nothing fuzzed him, at least, nothing he allowed to show. Guests were whispering about him, about his cold decisions, the enemies he accumulated, and the investigation surrounding his name. Rumor had it that Sebastian carried a secret that could bring down an entire edifice if it ever came to light. He, however, seemed unconcerned. He moved as if he were above any turbulence, as if every square inch of that ballroom were his dominion. He wore a flawless dark suit, and the watch on his wrist was worth more than the apartment Isabella called home. Nothing about him seemed accessible. Nothing seemed human. Until his eyes met hers. It was in that instant that the narratives of their two worlds collided, hers, defined by fear and silence, his, marked by power and solitude. Sebastian was never a man to approach strangers, much less women who did not belong to the gilded circles surrounding him. But, on that particular night, something propelled him in her direction, perhaps the urgent need to deflect speculation about his personal life, perhaps a political maneuver unfolding behind the scenes, perhaps a wound he concealed even from himself. Pausing before the isolated table, he observed Isabella in silence. Slowly, she lifted her face and, for a second, even forgot to breathe. His presence permeated the very atmosphere. Yet, Sebastian did not seem intent on charming her. He appeared resolute, almost taut with concentration. "I require you to feigen being my wife," he stated in a low, unwavering voice. "And dance with me." Isabella's eyes widened. She was unsure if she had heard him correctly. But before she could formulate a reply, Sebastian extended his hand with an ease that suggested her request was as mundane as asking for a glass of water. She hesitated, scanned the room, noted the curious and judging glances, but also perceived something unexpected in his eyes: sheer urgency. And thus, she abandoned the table where she had always remained invisible, stepping, still bewildered, into the epicenter of a world she had never imagined traversing. Sebastian led her toward the center of the ballroom and positioned her gently. As his hand neared her waist, he detected her subtle tremor. Isabella was not a woman accustomed to being handled with such tenderness, and her muscles reacted before her heart did. He registered it. But he made no comment. And so began the dance that would intertwine two wholly disparate destinies, hers, forged from survival, his, constructed upon secrets poised to detonate. The music subtly enveloped the hall as Isabella attempted to follow Sebastian's steps, still disconcerted by the turn of events. Her body was rigid, almost apologetic for its mere presence. Sebastian sensed the tension, leaned his face slightly closer, and murmured with controlled precision: "Simply follow my lead. You are required to do nothing further." Isabella nodded, fraught with nerves. Her hand rested on his shoulder, and she nearly recoiled upon feeling the firmness of his touch, yet his gaze held her captive. There was neither arrogance nor calculated charm, there was intense focus. It was as if he were looking past the dance itself, utilizing the moment to conceal something no one should witness. And, indeed, he was. To the right side of the floor, two men scrutinized Sebastian's every movement. They did not smile, they did not confer. They merely surveilled. They were non-executives vying for power within the Montenegro group, and that evening they appeared particularly attentive to the CEO's conduct. Everyone was aware of the impending scandal, leaked documents, allegations of malfeasance, and suspicions of fraud that Sebastian had not yet been able to prove originated from within the company itself. The shadow of that attack was closing in rapidly, and he needed to project absolute control, including over his personal life. Especially over it. Any perceived weakness would be exploited, any rumor manipulated. And speculation regarding the absence of a stable conjugal life had already begun to proliferate. This was precisely why he had selected her. A woman unknown, improbable, entirely off the grid. Someone no one could trace Theo fabricate old stories, past relationships, or manufactured scandals. She was perfect, precisely because she was not a part of that world. As they twirled across the floor, Isabella struggled to keep her heart in check. Only when she raised her eyes did she realize that several guests were observing them intently. Some surprised, others displeased, others envious. "Why, ma?" she whispered, barely moving her lips. Sebastian paused for a few seconds before replying. "Because he needed someone real." Her answer was strange, enigmatic, and caused Isabella to look away for a moment. But before she could interpret its meaning, an elegant woman approached, interrupting their dance. She wore a strained smile, the kind that conceals venom behind her lipstick. "Sebastian, so this is your wife?" she inquired, loud enough for others to overhear. Isabella froze. Sebastian slowly released her waist, turned toward the woman, and replied with the same composure he would use to handle an explosion. "It is exactly what you heard." The guest raised her eyebrows in surprise, yet maintained her smile. "Funny, no one knew you had gotten married." "I don't usually disclose my private life," he countered without batting an eye. The woman looked Isabella up and down, scrutinizing every detail. Isabella felt her face flush. Her palms grew sweaty. Her feeling of inadequacy returned like a powerful wave. But Sebastian noticed and approached her again, resting his hand naturally on her back. "Isabella prefers privacy," he stated, this time looking directly at the woman, as if setting boundaries. The guest smiled disdainfully and walked away, but not before shooting a look that said, "This isn't over." As soon as she disappeared among the guests, Isabella drew a deep breath. "That was a mistake," she murmured. "Ich sollte be here." "On the contrary," Sebastian replied. "You have just helped me more than you realize." Before Isabella could inquire what that meant, a cell phone vibrated inside her purse. She opened it discreetly, and her body went cold seeing the name on the screen. Mauro. Isabella's heart pounded, so fiercely that she had to clutch the phone to keep from dropping it. Her message was short, yet cruel as ever. "You think you can avoid me? I know where you are." A shiver ran down her spine. Sebastian noticed her expression shift abruptly. "Is something wrong?" he asked, lowering his voice. Isabella quickly put the phone away, avoiding eye contact. "Nothing, just a personal matter." He did not believe her. But he did not press the issue. He merely held her arm lightly. "You only need to stay by my side tonight. After that, you are free." But Isabella already felt that she was not free of anything. Not him. Nor the past that insisted on haunting her. On that first dance, which should have been nothing more than an odd request, was about to transform into the beginning of a chaos neither of them had anticipated. The house was already steeped in that heavy nocturnal silence when Isabella finally settled Samuel to sleep. The boy had endured a challenging day, and she was utterly drained. She descended the stairs solely to fetch a glass of water, hoping desperately to avoid any encounters. But upon reaching the kitchen, she saw Adrian sitting alone, his face illuminated by the bluish luminescence of his laptop. He did not immediately register her presence. His fingers were motionless above the case, as if he were trying to devise a solution that was inherently elusive. "Emer, Adrian," she called softly. He raised his eyes, almost as if he had been jolted from a trance. He said nothing. He merely pivoted the screen toward her. That dashboard, with its frozen accounts, suspicious transactions, and audit warnings, absolutely everything about it screamed of impending chaos. Isabella did not grasp it initially. "What, is this yours?" "It is the initiation of an attack," he replied, his voice low. "They are locking down my access, my funds, my investments. All concurrently." She felt a peculiar surge of apprehension, as if she were watching a building collapse in slow motion. But why? How would perpetrate such a thing? Adrian rested his elbows on the table, taking a deep breath. "Someone how knows the precise avenues by which they wound me. Someone how is anticipating my downfall. Before she could articulate another question, his cell phone vibrated. Had him reverberated through the empty kitchen like a for a warning. He looked at the display and froze. An anonymous message. Just one sentence. You know what you owe. You have 48 hours. Isabella stepped back. My God, is this serious? More serious than you can fathom. Her ensuing silence was so oppressive it seemed Theo consumed her space. She tried to breathe slowly, but her heart was racing too fiercely. Adrian, this pertains to your business dealings, correct? Nothing that involves the household, or the people here. He hesitated, and his hesitation was worse than any direct answer. He would like to say no. But he cannot give you that assurance. Isabella felt a sharp spike of terror trace her spine. I have a child here. Samuel sleeps upstairs. No, Adrian interjected, his voice steadier than before. And that is precisely why we will resolve this before it comes anywhere near either of you. It offered no comfort. Her dread still lingered, escalating inside her. Resolve it how? If even your own systems cannot mitigate the damage. He snapped her laptop shut. I know precisely how he's doing this. And I know precisely what this person wants. Isabella realized he was trembling, not from anger, but from something far more profound. Adrian, this is dangerous, isn't it? He rose slowly, moving closer to her. There was no arrogance, no aloofness, none of that untouchable demeanor. There was only exhaustion and fear. Isabella, he said, looking at her as if he finally acknowledged that he was no longer alone in that house. The moment you walked in here, they noticed. Noticed what? That you and Samuel are my weakness. A chill ran through her. Me? But I am just your maid. I have nothing to do with this. Now you do. Her floor seemed to give way beneath her feet. Her breast caught. Samuel was right there, only a few feet away, sleeping, oblivious to what was unfolding outside that door. Isabella swallowed hard. And what are you going to do? Adrian took several long seconds to reply. Whatever is necessary to keep you both safe. She didn't know if she believed him. She questioned whether trusting him was the right decision. But one thing she knew, in that precise moment, both their lives had been drawn into a game she hadn't even known existed. And as she left the kitchen, her hands trembling, she understood, for the first time, that nothing in that house was simple. And nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same. The following morning, the house appeared unchanged, yet something in the atmosphere had shifted. Her silence was no longer the typical quietude of a millionaire-ish residence, it was a tense stillness, as if the walls were poised to divulge a secret. Isabella came downstairs, holding Samuel's hand, attempting to act normally, but the boy noticed. Mom, why are you squeezing my hand so tightly? She immediately loosened her grip, forcing a smile. I am sorry, my love. My mind is just preoccupied. Samuel ran off to grab his cereal, and she remained rooted for a few seconds, scanning her surroundings as if expecting someone to emerge from any corner. Her sense of danger, which had previously been only a foreboding, now felt like a constant burden on her shoulders. Adrian appeared a few minutes later. He was impeccably dressed, as always, but his eyes betrayed his lack of sleep. He approached Isabella, speaking low enough that Samuel would not overhear. I need you to do everything exactly as you would on a normal day. She furrowed her brow. Why? What has happened now? Not here. He glanced around, suspicion evident. Her internal cameras have been accessed externally. I cannot guarantee that we are alone. Isabella felt her stomach clench. Are you saying someone is watching us? Adrian offered no reply, and his silence spoke volumes more than any words ever could. After breakfast, he approached her again, his voice firmer this time. You and Samuel cannot leave the house today. I have already requested a security reinforcement, but I need you both to remain together. What if someone gets in? What if they do something to him? Her voice trembled, uncontrollably. "I won't let that happen," Adrian stated, and while there was truth in his tone, there was also fear. "Trust me this one time." Isabella wanted to respond, but her handler ran. It was highly unusual, therefore rarely ever ran. Adrian froze upon hearing it. He stared at the device as if it were a weapon leveled directly at them both. He answered without taking his eyes off her. "Hello." Her voice on the other end was not audible enough for Isabella to catch, but she witnessed his reaction. His jaw clenched tight. His brow furrowed. His hand gripped the phone as if intent on crushing it. When he hung up, he turned to her. "They want proof that I am cooperating." Isabella took a step back, confused. "And what does that imply?" "It means they are going to test boundaries. Mine, and yours." "Mine," she echoed, a tightness gripping her chest. "Isabella, these men strike first where it hurts the most. And now they believe you are a vulnerability for me." She shook her head, breathless. "But I am merely an employee. Theo you, yes. Theo them, no." Samuel rushed into the room, holding a toy car. "Mom, look. It moves by itself if you push it on the table." Isabella blinked rapidly, attempting to stave off the ash. "That is wonderful, sweetheart." Adrian watched the scene, his gaze heavy, a gravity he could not conceal. "Isabella, come with me for a minute." She hesitated, but complied. He led her to the office, closed the door, and spoke in a register lower than ever before. "He received a photograph." She felt her heart nearly halt. "Of what?" He extended his phone. It was an image of the facade of Samuel's school. The same one Samuel had attended before they moved to live here. Her caption was simple. "We remember." Isabella's legs gave way. "They know where he studied, they know everything about us." "This is how they operate," Adrian replied. "They overlook nothing. Adrian, this isn't just about you. They are involving my son." "My son?" He ran a hand over his face, frustration evident. "I know. And I will protect you both, even if we have to confront this alone." "But why are they doing this?" she asked, practically pleading. "Why?" Adrian paused deliberately, then answered, his voice heavy. "Because, years ago, somebody brought down, Hush returned to correct." She gasped, losing her breath. "And they will show us for that. If we allow it." He moved closer, more solemn than ever. "Isabella, you need to place your trust in me. Just for today. Just until we resolve this." She took a deep breath, trying to summon resolve where none existed. "I will trust you. But you must promise that you won't conceal anything else from me." He hesitated, but gave a slight nod. "I promise." Yet, even as he spoke the words, his cell phone vibrated again with another message. Adrian glanced down, and immediately shielded the phone behind his back before she could catch sight of it. Isabella noticed. His promise was already broken. And the danger enveloping them had just become far greater than she had ever imagined. Night descended like a leaden shroud upon the manor, ushering in an eerie, nearly suffocating silence. Even with the security detail patrolling the perimeter, Isabella harbored the unsettling conviction that nothing within was truly safeguarded. Her entire house was brightly lit, yet it felt profoundly dark. It was as if shadows lurked in every recess, anticipating the opportune moment to stir. Adrian failed to appear for dinner. He offered no notice of his whereabouts. He did not respond when she called out for him in the hallway. It was as though he had vanished within the confines of his own home. This only amplified the disquiet mounting within her. Samuel was already asleep, utterly exhausted after a day heavy with tension that he could not possibly comprehend. Isabella lingered beside his bed longer than usual, watching her son's steady, rhythmic breathing, as if confirming every passing minute that he remained physically present and secure. But the fragile peace was short-lived. A distinct sound downstairs made her heart lurch in her chest. It was not a structural sound of the house settling, nor was it wood shifting. It was something tapping, or being forced open, or moved. Something that absolutely should not have been disturbed. She crept slowly out of the room, striving for absolute silence. The house seemed vast in that moment, as if every corridor had doubled in dimension. With every step, she felt the floorboards faintly vibrate beneath her feet, as though danger itself was pacing alongside her. As she descended the first flight of stairs, she saw a light illuminated in Adriane's study. Her door stood ajar, and a shadow shifted within. Her heart hammered so violently that she had to brace her hand against her wall to steady herself. "Samuel, stay upstairs, please don't wake up," she murmured to herself, towards a desperate, fervent prayer. She approached cautiously, holding her breath. When she carefully nudged her door open, bracing herself to encounter an intruder, she found Adrian. He was standing rigid in the center of the study, gripping his phone tightly, staring at the screen as if he were moments away from hurling it against the wall. Adrian. He spun around far too quickly, like a man who had not slept in days. "You should not be here." He heard a noise. He thought that someone had broken in. "They have broken in," he replied, his voice coming out low and heavy. "Just not physically. Yet." Isabella surveyed her room. Her safe was wide open. Documents were strewn about. Her desk appeared to have been ransacked. What has happened here? Adrian drew a sharp breath, raking a hand through his hair as if attempting to anchor his composure. They managed to gain access to documents that were securely locked away. There are materials here that, if they are released to the public, they will utterly destroy everything. My company, my contracts, my reputation. "But why execute this now?" she inquired, taking a step closer. "Why do this to you?" "Because they don't just want to bring me down. They intend to punish me." She swallowed hard. "And where do we factor into this?" I hesitated. And that silence inflicted more damage than any verbal reply. "You have become the only leverage they have to manipulate me without allowing me to retaliate publicly." "But what did you do?" she pressed, her voice quivering. "What transgression could warrant such extreme measures?" Adrian averted his gaze. "Years ago, he exposed a powerful man. He orchestrated illicit dealings within seemingly legitimate enterprises. Fraud. Laundering. He exploited people, the impoverished, treating them as disposable tools. He reported him. He was incarcerated. And he vowed that upon his release, he would destroy everything he held dear. But you don't allow anything," slipped out before she could temper her thought. Adrian looked at her as if he had been physically struck. "That is where your assumption is flawed." She felt a constriction in her chest, but this was no time for any sentiment that might compromise her clarity. "And has he, this man, been released from prison?" Adrian nodded slowly. "He was released yesterday." Hair evaporated from Isabella's lands. Adrian, this means he is already coming for us." "Yes." "And you allowed Samuel to sleep, operating under the assumption that everything was secure." "He did not wish to alarm you further before discerning a course of action." She took a step back. "Concealing the truth has never afforded me protection. Not when he was with Samuel's father. Not now." Adrian started to respond, but his cell phone vibrated again. He glanced at the screen, and all color drained from his face. They sent something else. Isabella stepped forward, devoid of courage, yet unable to remain stationary. "What is it?" He rotated the screen toward her. It was a video. Her footage showed a camera being positioned, in a place sickeningly familiar. Her framing focused on the side entrance of the house. And then, abruptly, as if it were a scene specifically staged for their viewing, a masculine hand reached for the door handle. Her caption appeared in plain lettering. "At midnight, the door opens." Isabella felt her legs trembling, nearly failing to support her. What time is it? She whispered. Adrian checked his watch. We have 6 minutes remaining. She did not think, did not breathe, did not calculate, she simply bolted toward the staircase. She ascended so rapidly that her feet nearly slipped on the threads. She threw open the bedroom door and scooped Samuel into her arms, though he was profoundly asleep. When she turned to descend, Adrian was standing in the doorway. They will breach the side entrance, he stated, his tone edged with desperate resolve. We must evacuate immediately. And where exactly are we going? She demanded, clutching her son tightly against her chest. To a place they would never conceive of me taking you. And where might that be? Far away from anything that belongs to me, Adrian replied, stepping closer, extending a hand to steady Samuel. Because that is precisely what they will not anticipate. Her noise erupted before either of them could formulate a thought. A sharp snap. Grinding metal. Vibrating glass. Her side door was being manipulated. And, just as the message had promised, it was about to swing open. The house seemed to breathe in unison with them, every noise echoing as if time itself had decelerated. Her hood against her side door repeated, louder, as though someone were gauging its integrity before attempting forced entry. Isabella clutched Samuel so fiercely that she felt her son's small arms encircle her neck, even in his sleep. It was instinct, it was fear, it was absolute love intermingled with raw panic. Adrian approached the hallway window and glanced swiftly, peering through a mere sliver. His expression changed instantly, it wasn't a terror, but a somber recognition, as if he were seeing something he had already anticipated, yet dreaded to confirm. They were there. 2 men dressed in black, faces obscured, their movements practiced. But there was something worse. The car that had brought them idled nearby, engine running, headlights off, sufficiently inconspicuous to avoid notice. It was a planned operation, designed to be furtive, swift, and conclusive. They won't stop, Adrian murmured, more to himself than to her. They came prepared. Isabella took a deep breath, striving to maintain composure. What are we going to do? Where do we go? Adrian opened the drawer of a piece of furniture in the hallway and retrieved the key. It was small, old, bearing the patina of age. There is a rear passage in the house that leads to the old garage. Hardly anyone knows it exists. And why did you never tell me about this? She asked, her voice trembling as she struggled not to lose her grip. Because he never thought we would actually need to say it, he replied, a weighty honesty in his voice. But tonight, we have no other recourse. The noise at the side door intensified. It was no longer a test. It was force. It was intent. It was a countdown they couldn't hear, but felt throbbing beneath their skin. Adrian gestured for her to follow him. Quickly. Don't they make a sound? They moved through the hallway, then the kitchen, where the lights were extinguished. The entire house seemed to observe their escape, as if aware that something momentous was about to unfold. Isabella felt her heart hammering in rhythm with their hurried steps, every second precious, every breath sounding like a liability. When they reached the laundry room, Adrian strenuously shoved aside an industrial washing unit. She never imagined it could move, revealing a narrow, metal door behind it. The door was old, camouflaged to appear part of the wall, as if it had been there since before the house was renovated. This way, he said. Isabella swallowed hard, clutching Samuel with one hand while the other grasped the door as support rail for balance. Will this actually work out? It has to. Adrian unlocked the door with the antique key. The click reverberated like an explosion, despite being a small sound. He pushed the door open, revealing a narrow corridor, lit only by dim bulbs, some flickering stubbornly. The air smelled of mildew and damp concrete, like something that had not been used in a very long time. Go in first, he said, placing his hand on her shoulder. Isabella stepped inside, adjusting Samuel in her lap. He stirred his head, drowsy, but remained asleep. The door shut behind them, and in that very instant, they heard the sound they dreaded, the side door being breached. A dry, violent crash that made the floor shudder. There inside, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Adrian placed his hand on her back, guiding her down the corridor. Keep moving. It is only a short distance. Their footsteps echoed. The corridor felt unduly long, too narrow for three people, and oppressive, like a deeply buried secret. When they rounded the final bend, they spotted the door at the far end, the exit to the old garage. But then something unanticipated occurred, something that made Adrian halt abruptly and stretch out his arm to impede her advance. The garage door was open. Isabella froze completely. How could they have known this route? They didn't know it, Adrian replied, his voice heavy. They followed someone else. Someone else, she echoed, bewildered. Adrian advanced slowly, drawing nearer to the door. As he approached, he discerned the silhouette of someone standing there, as if they had been expecting them for a long time. The person stepped forward. The dim light illuminated their face. It was not a masked intruder. It was not one of the men from the car. It was not the enemy they had envisioned. It was Vitor, Adrian's right-hand man. His most trusted confidant. The one who always seemed composed, loyal, and responsible. He was holding a cell phone and a firearm. He was not masked. He was not nervous. He was prepared. And he was smiling. Isabella felt the ground vanish beneath her feet. Vitor. Adrian said, drawing a deep breath, as if hair itself were weighing down his chest. What are you doing here? Vitor raised the weapon slightly. Doing precisely what he should have done years ago. Betraying me. Adrian asked, in a harsh tone he said amused. Correcting things, Vitor replied, as if that word had complete internal logic for him. You destroyed her own man's life. Andy warned you that your arrogance would ultimately blind you. Isabella clutched Samuel to her chest, taking a step back. Adrian, was he working with that man since the very beginning? Since before you even suspected, Vitor answered for him. While you were trying to save the world, he was trying to salvage what was left of my life. And you never noticed a thing. You always assumed you were one step ahead. You always believed no one could touch you. Adrian looked at Isabella. And in that second, she understood. Her true treachery did not come from outside. It came from within their own home. Vitor aimed the weapon directly at Adrian. It is over. But before the worst could transpire, a deafening noise echoed from outside the garage, tires shrieking, door slamming, rapid footsteps. Vitor's gaze shifted for a second. It was enough for destiny to change its course. The shreds of tires outside clawed the heavy silence of the garage like a thunderlap. Vitor snapped his head toward the sound, irritated, startled, and, for the first time that night, unnerved. It was as if he had expected no interruption, as though everything had been meticulously calibrated until it wasn't anymore. Adrian watched the muzzle of the weapon drop a few inches. It was the margin he required. It was the opportunity he could not squander. But before Adrian could react, Isabella took 2 steps back, shielding Samuel with her body and pressing her back against the narrow corridor wall. The boy remained asleep, oblivious to the surrounding chaos, and that silent innocence lent her more fortitude than anything else. Stay behind me, Adrian murmured without looking at her. But she did not reply. Not because she disagreed, but because her heart was hammering so fiercely that it felt as though any word might betray her position, her vulnerability, her terror. The sound of approaching footsteps outside echoed rapidly, heavy, resolute, synchronized. It was as if a small army had surrounded the garage. Vitor realized this too late. He scanned his surroundings for exits, but there was nowhere to flee. Not in that hidden passage, not in that forgotten corner of the estate. Did you call for reinforcements? He spat, tightening his grip on the weapon's handle. Adrian looked directly at him. No. And it was true. He hadn't called anyone. Vitor fronted, and, in that second, fate slapped the pieces into place. Her cell phone in his hand vibrated. He glanced involuntarily at the screen. And that distraction was everything Adrian needed. The billionaire surged forward, seizing Vitor's arm and wrenching it sideways. The gun discharged, but the bullet ricocheted off the ceiling, creating a deafening detonation. Isabella flinched, shielding Samuel, feeling her chest tremble from the noise. Vitor tried to counter, but Adrian was larger, stronger, and driven by something that transcended mere rage. It was protection, it was desperation, it was the certainty that losing Isabella and Samuel meant losing what he hadn't even known he needed until he met them. They both stumbled across the rough floor of the old garage. Vitor landed a punch on Adrian's face. Adrian kicked the weapon away. It skidded across the floor, stopping near the open doorway. The sound of footsteps drove even closer, and finally, someone appeared at the entrance. And it was not an enemy. It was Adrian's personal security detail, 4 armed men, faces strained, her team leader shouting. Emer Montenegro. Get down. Vitor tried to reach for the weapon reflexively, but one of the guards charged in and neutralized him before he could get close. It was swift, brutal, precise. It was like witnessing the end of a storm that had nearly destroyed everything, only to dissipate in the final second. Only then did the silence return. A heavy silence. A silence that trembled. Adrian slowly rose, breathing raggedly, his face bruised, blood trickling from his brow. He said nothing immediately. He just looked at Isabella. And she looked back. Samuel remained asleep in her lap, as if he were the only one capable of maintaining composure in that seemingly collapsing world. Are you all right? Adrian asked, his voice hoarse, fractured by adrenaline. She nodded, even though her hands were still trembling. And you? She managed to ask. Adrian offered a small, weary smile. Now, yes. The security guards dragged Vitor away, handcuffed, screaming, calling Adrian a coward, swearing vengeance. But his words no longer carried any weight. Not after what had been revealed. Not after what had almost transpired. When they were left alone, just the 3 of them, the man, the woman, and the child sleeping between them, something different permeated the air. It was no longer fear. It was no longer distrust. It was something born in the void left by danger. It was the truth. Adrian walked slowly toward Isabella, as if afraid of startling her. I failed you, he said, with raw sincerity. I failed when I hid things. When I thought I could resolve everything myself. When I let you think you were here merely out of convenience. She took a deep breath, her chest heavy. I am not as strong as she appeared, she said faintly. I am afraid. Afraid for myself, afraid for my son. Andy. I don't know where it is safe. Adrian touched her arm lightly. A minimal, almost tentative touch, which buried the powerful man everyone feared. With me, he replied. I cannot promise a world without peril, nor a life without trouble. But I can promise that you will never face anything alone again. Neither you. Nor Samuel. Isabella felt something melt inside her, something she had spent years holding on to just to keep herself standing. And yet, she did not respond with a yes, nor with a no. It wasn't a time. There was still too much to heal. Minutes later, already in the main living area, with a house full of reinforcements, private medics, and police arriving, Isabella laid Samuel down on the sofa, while Adrian approached, a bandage over his eyebrow and a weary expression. He shot down nearby, but not as so close as to corner her. Just close enough to be present. The clock read 3:17 PM. The night had been far too long. What now? She asked, softly. It wasn't a reproach. It was a sincere, human, fragile question. Adrian took a deep breath before responding. Now begins everything that comes next. After what? She asked. After the fear. After the escape. After what we nearly lost. He looked at Samuel. After realizing that the two of you are what he didn't know he needed. Isabella averted her gaze for a moment, feeling her eyes well up. He only wanted to protect my son. And he only wanted to protect you, I replied. She was uncertain whether she fully believed it. She wasn't sure if she trusted it implicitly. She didn't even know if she was prepared for anything that transcended the coming dawn. But she grasped, for the first time, the realization that she was no longer solitary. The pre-dawn hours progressed slowly, silently, laden with fatigue and suppressed emotion. And as the sun finally began to crest the horizon, gilding the sky, Isabella recognized a feeling she had never conceived of experiencing within those walls. Peace. Not flawless peace. Not the kind that arrives untainted by shadows. But the peace achievable in the aftermath of survival. Adrian was seated on the far side of the sofa, watching Samuel sleep, as though however, tending to him. As though he genuinely cared. And, for the first time, Isabella entertained the notion, only entertained the notion, that perhaps a new life was viable. Though uncertain, though replete with fragments yet unsettled. She said nothing. Neither did he. But the silence between them had fundamentally shifted. And the nascent morning heralded not a definitive conclusion, but an open beginning, replete with questions and paths that could only be trod together, or not. But, for the first time, the possibility existed. And sometimes, that was all anyone ever needed.